Welcome back to another Real Estate Note Show. I'm your host, Dave Putz. Alongside me, Nathan Turner. How you
Hello,
been?
hello. Doing well, doing well.
Awesome. Well, today we're going to get into the Corporate Transparency Act, which is a big thing to unravel. But before we get there, how have you been? We haven't talked in a few weeks.
It's been a little while. Yeah, it's true. No, things are good. Kids are back in school, getting kind of into the groove of things, and it's been good. Just getting back into normal routine.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. School is, school, sports, we have everything going on right now.
Hmm.
Nighttime is no longer ours, right? That summertime is over and kaput. Um, and we've been doing a lot of getting back to normal in the real estate note space, with some big conferences coming up.
Yeah.
Note Expos coming up here in November. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, we have a link on our website. If not, just email me. We have a link directly to it. So definitely jump in there and go see Eddie and the crew down there, down in Dallas. But
Yeah, I
what's
just
been,
uh, I just posted on that yesterday. So I know it's a little bit out. I'm more of a planner. It
yeah,
surprises me how many people buy tickets the week of, but
yeah,
no, get your tickets early.
yep,
Pro tip
absolutely.
for those who are organizing a conference, it makes a big difference. First
Yes,
of all, you save some money if you get the early bird ticket, but really it gives me a chance as the organizer to understand what the numbers are.
yep,
It just makes planning that much easier. So
yeah.
do them a favor,
So
get your ticket early, then be there.
So for those who don't know what we're talking about, there's a nationwide note conference. There's a couple of them. Nathan runs one of them. There's Note School, runs Note Expo with down in Dallas. And it's fabulous time to connect with other people in the note space, note creators, note sellers, and just learn what's going on and face to face. We'll both be there.
Yeah.
I'll be flying out of Philly. Nathan will be flying down from Canada. But it's a really cool thing. For those who don't know who we are, um, I've been in the note space since 2010, started with a fund, analyzing deals, and then started buying my own around 2011, 2012. But I got into real estate 2005, with rental stuff, and I became a note buyer. And I've been doing note buying forever, feels like. Nathan
Yeah.
has a similar background. Go ahead.
Very similar. I got started in 2009, bought my first non-performing note in 2010. Before that, I was same thing. I was doing some real estate, fix and flip and landlording. And when I got into notes, I was like, the realization that this is a much easier way to go for the same amount of money or better.
Yeah.
And so it's for me, it's a no-brainer. There's some pros and cons, and you got to weigh that out for whatever your investing strategy is. But for myself, I'm a big fan.
Absolutely. Um, you know, we've gotten more in the idea of creative finance notes, and those people seem to just starting to get what we're doing as note buyers, right? And that
Yeah.
interest. Um, we've actually analyzed a couple CFDs recently, and as much as I'm not into them, I'm going to look to buy them and convert them and all that stuff. I
All
get it,
right.
guys. Yeah, I get it. You're creating CFDs for the ease of it. But
Yeah.
there are some drawbacks. I just don't want the liability, and we're going to work on that, in a couple of shows where we'll probably talk about how to convert over successfully. But the note
Well, that'd
space
be a
has
good
been,
show. Yeah, let's
yeah,
do
I
that.
think it'd be big good because I think a lot of people want to know if it's worth it to switch over, right? What's the liability of not? And what's
Yeah.
the benefit of having a CFD, right? And we'll
Yeah.
get into that in a future show. If
Pros
you
and
have
cons of
other,
both.
yeah, if you have other ideas, guys, if you want to talk about, let us know. Awesome. If you are looking to learn about more about conferences, reach out to Nathan about DME, Diversified Mortgage Expo. You can always reach out to our website. We have a link inside the chat, that will allow you to get this week's Jeff Watson's information, as well as our podcasts, our YouTube videos, and things like that. So,
Yeah.
with the,
Lots of good stuff coming up.
yeah,
Wintertime's a great time.
yeah,
You're down and get
absolutely.
work done. It's great.
Absolutely. So I would encourage all those who aren't connected friends wise, who have an LLC, who have an S corp, or have some kind of thing there, to make sure you reach out and to, tell them about today's call, either the recording, the podcast, or whatever it is, so that you can make sure that you learn everything has to do with this, because this is a huge topic, that's going to transform a lot of things if it goes through. So,
Well, it's already currently it's law, but we've got to register by the end of the year. Jeff will tell us all about that,
yeah,
pros and cons and all that kind of good stuff.
yeah.
We'll try.
Absolutely. So let's bring Jeff
It'll be
in without
interesting.
further ado. Mr. Jeff Watson, Attorney Jeff Watson, how have you been?
I'm doing better and better, gentlemen. It's always a privilege to be here with you.
Yeah, that's
Excellent.
awesome.
Good to have
Thank
you.
you very much for joining us for a little bit this morning and kind of explain to everyone what this is, what's going on. But before we get there, who are you and how do you come to speak on this topic?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I could do the old Billy Crystal shtick on you right now of who am I, and who am I, and go through all three words and emphasize each one, but I'm not gonna. When you see it in the movie, it's hilarious. But anyhow, that's because it's Billy Crystal. But my name's Jeff. I'm a lawyer licensed to practice law in the state of Ohio, only in the state of Ohio. And I have been a real estate investor since January of 1994. Started out as a landlord, did some did I did what there's some term for it that everybody's got all glammed up over in the last few years. But I would buy a rental, ugly rental, I'd fix it up, I'd refinance it, and then I'd stick a tenant, I'd have a tenant in there and so on. I thought that was the way to go. I mean, that was before somebody put it into a course and put all sorts of lipstick on it and makeup and sent it out the door as some info product. I was doing it. Lots of other people were doing it. Then I got, but at the whole time I'm still practicing law full time, litigation, downtown Cleveland, in court, doing administrative hearings, literally 5 days a week, just exhausted, but still had to build a rental portfolio because I knew swapping hours for dollars had a limited life expectancy. So anyhow, fast forward, I then leave the law firm after 13 years there, start my own practice, and I start getting drugged more and more into the real estate stuff, less and less into the personal injury, medical, legal litigation, more and more into the real estate. Started out pretty heavy in short sales, turned the short sale industry upside down because I understood transactions in ways that most people didn't get it because I brought a lawyer brain to it. And then moved from there. And then I met a guy by the name of Eddie Speed. And after getting to understand Eddie Speed and figuring out what he was talking about, getting to understand speedisms, if you know what I mean. I looked at myself one day in the mirror and I said, I don't think I'm going to be doing any more of these anymore, which is referring to buying and fixing rentals. Done. If I can't get it, my attitude now about real estate investing is if I cannot do it with a financial calculator, my iPhone, my laptop, and a dictaphone, it doesn't get done. It just doesn't get done. Yeah. I don't touch hammers, saws, paint brushes. I don't touch it. Okay. That's all there is to it. And and Eddie was a big help in me getting to that point because I saw when you got a hold of paper versus bricks and sticks, what happened. And then I moved away from that because I mean buying a defaulted note is such a better, more superior investment strategy than begging to do a discount on a short sale. I'm done. I am no more going to be that little boy standing there with a bowl of Oliver Twist. Please, sir, may I have some more porridge or gruel? No, I want to be the bank. And I pulled off a transaction for a client like that back in 2011. It was a monumental deal. We backed into title through a deed in lieu of foreclosure, cleared 31 exceptions on a title commitment. And I have watched what that client has done with that property to this day. And he has probably 10x'd it in the last 13 years. It is now easily a $30 million property.
Nice.
And we came into it for $3 million all total. It was just monumental. So I saw the power of how to do notes and work deals from the paper side. And all the time I've got clients that are, like, hey, Jeff, you understand real estate. You're still a lawyer. You still know what to do. Can you look at this issue? Can you look at that issue? And then lo and behold, our federal government, in its infinite wisdom, air quotes on that infinite wisdom stuff there, folks. Just want you to hear it. Know there's a little sarcasm there. Comes along with different pieces of legislation. The first one was the brilliantly thought out Dodd-Frank. And so we've been charging up the hill on Dodd-Frank for about 12 years now, trying to get some of that change regarding seller financing. And that's been an ongoing joy. I mean, I was in Washington, D.C. just earlier this week on that topic. I'll be back there next week on that topic. And it's just, folks, if you don't hear anything else I say about this, Voting matters. Voting matters. Get registered to vote. Make sure all of your like-minded friends are registered to vote, and vote. Vote for common sense, business-minded people. I'm not going to tell you what party to vote for, because I've got friends on both sides of the aisles that own rental properties, and they understand it, you know? So just, you know, just vote for people who understand business. Okay. And then, so we fought Dodd-Frank, we're fighting Dodd-Frank. And then we get this next thing that comes down the road. And I'm going to cut the bio short. We get this next thing coming down the road called the Corporate Transparency Act. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
Once again, the government in its infinite wisdom, believing that small business owners, mom and pop entrepreneurs, that we are either drug dealers, money launderers, sex traffickers, human traffickers, or some other bad, nefarious person, that they need to know what we're doing with everything we do in our businesses, and every time we buy and sell an asset, they need to know about it. And I'm like, you know, there's so many better ways to enforce, you know, money laundering issues and so on. I mean, but no, they got to make an invasion of privacy a primary aspect for them. So the Corporate Transparency Act became enacted January 1st of 2024, after it had been stalled for a couple of years. Now, just so you understand, this bill got passed 3 years ago. It got passed as part of a huge defense appropriations bill that sailed through the Democrat-led House, sailed through the Democrat-led Senate, and landed on President Biden's desk. And I don't know, in a moment of clarity or senility, he signed it. Bam. We now have the deepest overreach into American business we've ever seen. And we'll get into how deep the overreach is. So it becomes effective January 1st of this year, because they have finally built a website that they believe is capable of capturing and storing all the data. And so now we're facing it. Here we are. This is September of 24, folks. We're down to 3 months and a week to comply with this thing. Now, I know a lot of people have already done it, and I've talked about this in the past. I was talking about this a year ago. And my recommendation was, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. And there was a brief moment for about 36, 48 hours where I thought this thing was dead, when a federal judge in Alabama ruled it was unconstitutional. And I was like, yay. In fact, I was at a conference, and I literally pivoted and changed the topic, because I was going to talk about that. And so for 36 hours, we all thought it was dead. So I spoke on a completely different topic. 7 hours later, the federal judge comes back and says, oh yeah, my ruling's just limited to the group of plaintiffs that brought this lawsuit. So it's unconstitutional to the people who filed the lawsuit, but anybody else who didn't file the lawsuit, it's still constitutional as to them.
Wow.
Now wrap your head around that one for just a moment.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I know there's other cases that are percolating in other districts and so on. And candidly, I think the federal government is just trying to run out the clock. The Department of Justice is just running out the clock. Let's get to the end of the year. We got a bunch of people who are now potential felons, and now we can go do something with them. Now, you know, without diving too deep into politics, but let's face it, laws are passed by politicians, and then they're enforced by bureaucrats. And
So
I don't think that's
who is this act affecting?
Oh, Dave. This act is affecting pretty much every small business in America. I'll go through the list of who it doesn't affect, and it's all of the big boys. It's a lot of the big, highly regulated companies and so on. They don't have to. But any sort of holding company, any sort of sole proprietor, any sort of entity, a corporation, an LLC, anything that does a partnership, anything that's doing business, that has, you know, a handful of employees, has a few million in assets, has this, that applies to them.
And what if they don't? What if they ignore this?
Well, they face penalties and fines up to $500 and some odd a day. And if they're deemed to be egregious enough, they can be prosecuted for a felony, second-degree felony, I believe.
For just not filing. You didn't do anything illegal. You didn't, it's not your books are bad, or you're, you know, laundering money.
Failing to report on yourself is now a felony.
Mm.
Think about that for just a moment.
Mm-hmm.
That's a headline right there.
Failing to report on yourself is a felony. See,
And
I've grown accustomed, my entire life, it's been a felony to lie about how much money you made on your taxes.
sure.
Okay. You can argue all day long over deductions. I mean, you can't go to jail for them when they disallow your deductions. Okay. But if you deliberately underreport your income,
Yep.
that's a felony. And I can understand that.
Sure.
Sure.
But when you choose to not disclose what you own in the virtue of what companies or businesses you own, well, now it's a felony as of now. And if you don't comply by the end of this year, it's no bueno. It's not good. You're looking at trouble,
Oh, man.
Do
Well,
they have, I mean, just to kind of explore all the thoughts on this, do they have an enforcement arm of this in place already?
Good question. I don't know if they have really built up the enforcement arm yet.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're still trying to figure out a lot of these things. And so this is kind of why I've switched my position. I mean, if you've listened to me earlier on this topic, I was
Sure.
saying in October of 23, wait until October of 24 to file because of just how the government works.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now punting and I'm now saying, I'm going to wait until about November 12th.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to wait till about November 12th. And there's a couple of reasons why I'm waiting. One of them is I'm going to just see if another court case pops. Another one is I'm going to wait to see what happens in the November elections.
Sure.
And I think what's changed my mind about that is I've spoken to several members of Congress about this legislation, about this law, and everyone that I've spoken to just looks at me and shakes their head and go, "We didn't vote for it.
Mm.
If
Wow.
we could, we'd get rid of it." And maybe that'll happen, but folks, don't bank on that because if they get rid of it, it's not going to be until after next year.
Right.
And you're already then going to be a felon. You will have already violated the law.
Wow.
And
So
penalties and all that will
yeah,
probably still apply. I doubt they'll just say, it's okay.
yeah. No, I don't think they're going to say, oh, it's okay. And I mean, God forbid we don't have much of a change in the structure of our government. And we continue to see gridlock in some form or another.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's still going to be there. It's still going to be there. So,
So
but I'm waiting until like November 12th, and then I'm gonna just sit down and carve out a couple of days and take care of all the filings for me and some of my clients. I've got one client with probably about 40 entities they're going to have to report.
And is this something done that the individual can do or your CPA has
Yes.
to do or? Okay.
You can do it. You can hire someone to do it for you. You can ask. I would not have your accountant do it. I don't believe your accountant is legally qualified to do it. I think, in my estimation, if I'm really going to put on my lawyer glasses and thinking hat,
mm-hmm.
the way the statute is written, it is so vague in some areas that I think you're going to need a lawyer to look at each and every one of your entities to determine who in that entity as an owner has substantial control, because the definition of substantial control is so vague that it's open to wide interpretation. And I don't think anybody other than someone who can think around corners like a lawyer should be able to think around corners can apply that principle to each and every business structure you have. Because let's face it, every entrepreneur I know is creative. They've got unique side agreements. They've got special little deals. You've got this percentage, I've got this percentage, but in the event of this, then the percent. Okay, you got to know all that stuff. Okay.
So what jumped out to me when we were at the DMA, you were talking about this was, isn't just me filing, right? It's my spouse may have to file, even though if they have a controlling interest in one of the companies, which they may not have any day-to-day involvement.
Right. They may have no
to let them
day-to-day
know.
involvement, but if you're married and you have used your marital relationship for good tax strategic planning and let's say you formed a multiple member LLC, whether you're in a community property state or non-community property state, because you want the advantage of a multiple member LLC for partnership tax return purposes, then both parties are going to have to be reported on the filing for that entity.
Wow.
Even though one of them absolutely does nothing other than keep your home alive. you know, so that when you come
Yeah.
home, there's actually a place there where you can eat, you know, and so, and believe me,
Absolutely.
eh, so there's a lot of married couples out there that have set up this structure where one of them has no clue how the other one's running the business, and
Yeah.
it's vice versa. I mean, I've seen it where, you know, they've got two businesses. She's going hard in one, he's going hard in the other, but they both own it together. Both those things you have to report, and you're going to have to be reported in both of them. So, yeah.
And
No.
so I'm trying to really just get my head around. So, like, I mean, where did this come from? What are
Yeah.
they trying to gather? Like, what's the purpose of this law in the
There
first?
is a belief, there is a belief that data is good. And there is a belief in our federal government that if we have more data on our US citizens that are doing business, and if we have more data on people who are doing business in the United States, then we can better ferret out who's doing drug dealing, who's doing money laundering, who's financing terrorism, who is doing human trafficking, who is doing this, who is doing that. Okay. And so the IRS is supposedly getting millions of tax returns every year showing what a business is doing and what it's
Ah,
making.
Mhm.
But the IRS doesn't necessarily get the data as to who really owns it. Now, let's face it, the way we do business in America today, with some of the rules we have in corporations and LLCs, and some of the creative structuring that's done there, yes, you can shift ownership interests around and the money that goes with it, and you can play. If you have a criminal mind,
Mhm.
you can take advantage of some loopholes.
wow.
Now, is reporting how many, reporting how many rental property holding companies I own, is that going to stop drug dealing? Is that going to stop money laundering? No.
Right.
They're
But that,
shotgunning it and not sure who's doing what, right? They're just trying to gather it. That flips the other
right.
side. How do I know my information's safe on the back end?
Oh, Dave, come on, man. Dave, on the 21st page of the 22-page long bill, it says that we have to afford a high level of security to the data that they collect, and that there's a special penalty if it goes wrong. But I got news for you.
Hmm.
I got news for you. Having been involved in companies where employees failed phishing tests,
Mhm.
where cybersecurity experts can come in and show all the gaps and the weaknesses, and where human beings are involved, somebody's going to click on the wrong link on the wrong phishing email, and the next thing you know, some Trojan horse is going to get implanted and it's going to suck all that data out. We've already seen it. China has billions of records on American service members, billions of records on American government employees. So anybody that knows how to do this is going to be able to steal this data.
Hmm.
And what kind of information are we reporting?
We are reporting the full home addresses and the current business actual physical location of every business in the United States and everybody who owns 25% or more of it or has substantial control over that business. So your full name
Mhm.
and identifying information, including tax ID number, but not social security number. They don't want that.
Okay.
The IRS already has that.
Yeah.
And so, they're gathering all that information. So here's what I foresee. Here's
Mhm.
what I foresee. And this is the part that scares the daylights out of me. And somebody's going to be like, oh, Jeff, your tinfoil hat's too tight. And I'm going to be like, no, I understand how people work and think.
Yeah.
Let's just say that with the advances we're seeing in computers, with AI and everything else, that if now I can access an individual's tax returns, an individual's beneficial ownership interest filing, and I can access their credit file, and I can access their banking information, I can determine very quickly, are they cheating on their taxes? Are they engaged in anything else that I don't like? And it can get to the point someday where somebody could look at my bank account and go, oh, every month he has a large check going to that church. Oh, every month he
Oh.
has a large check going to that missions organization. We
Mhm.
don't like that behavior. We're going to target him for something.
Mhm.
There, I said it.
Yeah.
I said it.
Mhm.
Or that, and I went down the extreme. So let me back up. they could look at it and say, okay, wait a second. He's got a $10,000 Rolex on his wrist. He's driving an $85,000 car, but he's reporting $22,000 in earned income.
Yeah.
Something doesn't compute,
Sure.
you know? So then they're going to look at it and say, well, what else is he? Oh, wait a second. Oh, he inherited this Roth IRA. Okay, now we understand. Or he owns this apartment complex that shows up on this other return, and he's got all this, depreciation canceling out all the other income. Okay, fine. But they can figure all that out. Oh, and if the guy didn't inherit a Roth IRA, doesn't have a rental property, and runs a business and has 22,000 in reported income, but a $10,000 Rolex and drives an $85,000 new vehicle,
Yeah.
paid for without a bank loan on it, they're going to be like, what's going on? We got to go see.
Christina asked a question. How
Mhm.
about trusts? Do trusts have to report?
Okay.
Anything different for a trust?
Yes. Things are different for a trust at this moment in time.
Mhm.
Okay. A trust is a contract. It is a private written agreement between individuals. And as long as there is not a entity involved with the trust, as long as there's not a corporation, partnership, or LLC involved with the trust, that trust does not have to report who its beneficial owners are, because a trust is not a structure. It is not an arrangement that requires filing with a Secretary of State or a tribal authority or a government agency in order to be brought into legal existence.
Mhm.
A trust comes into existence upon the agreement of more than one person.
Okay.
How
Okay?
about solo 401ks?
A solo 401k in and of itself does not have to, but its sponsoring employer does. Remember, you cannot have a solo 401k unless
Sure.
you have a company by which it is generating earned income from which tax returns are being filed and pay is being withheld going into the 401k. So the sponsoring entity owned by the same person has got to report.
Awesome. Yeah.
Nice try.
Good question,
Nice
Tammy.
try.
Yep.
Nonprofits?
Now, but don't panic, Tammy. Don't panic. Don't panic. Your government overlords are here to help you.
Yeah.
There's proposed rules on cash transactions and trusts involving real estate that are still being written, and they're not out for comment yet, but there's proposed rules.
Great.
How about nonprofits like, church organizations and other nonprofits? Do they have to report?
I can show you a list of who does not have to report.
Okay.
And I believe churches and nonprofits are on that list.
Okay.
And so we can do one of two things, guys. If we want to handle the screen share, we can do it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I can just send you this document that came from the federal government that has a nice formatting and layout. And it's pretty easy to read.
So
Whichever way
guys, if you
wanna
want
rock
that
and roll.
information, there's a link inside the chat where you can get all the information. Do you have it on your website and everything too?
I'm going to send it. I'll just email it to you
Okay.
guys. I'll just
Perfect.
email
Yep.
it to you guys. Yep. And if you want, I can pull it up. Let me see. Can we do share screen right
We
now?
could if you want to. Sure. If
Yeah,
that makes
just
it
go
easier
ahead.
for you.
It'll help people see what we're doing here.
Yep. It should be available. Go ahead.
Well, let's make sure my computer does what I tell it to do,
Mhm.
because I don't need it to share the commercial real estate deal I'm working on right now. All right. So what we've got here is the first question of what under the law, what company, who has to report? Okay. Reporting company definition. All right. Let's see if we can get all these pop-ups to not pop.
And actually,
So
before you get into that, you got up at the top there, BOI, small compliant, like there, and that's the new term I've heard is now they're calling it BOI.
beneficial ownership information. Yes.
Yeah.
So this is I'm sharing now selections from the document I'm going to make available to anybody that wants it. Okay.
Okay.
But let's just go through this. Was the company created under the laws of one of the states or an Indian tribe of the United States? If the answer is yes, it's going to have to report. If the answer is no, is it an LLC? I'm trying to find a spot to put my mouse where I'm not going to keep triggering all this stuff. And then was the company created by filing a document, blah, blah, blah. Any one of those things that are yes, it may be a domestic reporting company. Was it registered to do business in any U.S. or tribal jurisdiction by filing something if it's a foreign entity? then it may be a foreign reporting company. Okay.
Hmm.
So now so we've got that to deal with. Now let's come down here, and I'm going to skip over a few pages. And here's a short list of exemptions. This is a short list. If you think you're on the list, you need to consult with your own attorney. I'm going to emphasize that again. Consult with your own attorney as to whether the entity that you think you have is really exempt. Okay. All right. So I've got to just flip the phone over because I'm gonna otherwise. Okay. So it is a security reporting issue. So if you've got an entity that reports to the SEC, it's exempt. Government authority, bank, credit union, depository institution, holding company, money services company, check cashing business. Are you a broker or dealer in securities? Are you doing a securities exchange or clearing agency? You know, all these different things.
Gotcha.
Well, let's come down a little bit more.
So
and let's go.
Do any of
Are
those,
you
the security ones, does that include a fund? Like a 506c?
It very may well. We'll get into that in just a minute.
Okay.
Okay. But if we come down here and we're looking at a tax exempt entity, such as a church, it doesn't have to report. But here's number 23 down at the bottom, an inactive entity. Let me talk about how they define that. It doesn't have a bank account.
Mm-hmm.
It has less than $1,000 in assets. Okay. That's what they consider to be inactive. All right. So now let's go take a look at this. Let's go. The one you asked about was which one was you asking about, Nathan?
A fund, like a 506c fund. That's what I've got.
So let's go see if it fits under 1 or 10. Let's go see what we've got here. Okay. Is the entity an issuer of classes securities registered under Section 12 of the Security and Exchange Act? Is it required to file supplementary periodic information under Section 15D of the SEC? That's number 1. If you answer yes to either of those, you're exempt. Okay. So let's jump down to number 10. Just see if you qualify there.
The answer is yes.
Okay.
We'll check that.
Is the entity a broker or dealer, as those terms are defined in Security Exchange Act? Okay. You got to hit both in number 7. Okay. Well, let's go look at number 10. That's number 10. You got to hit both of these. Is the entity an investment company or investment advisor, as defined as either the Investment Company Act or an investment advisor in Section 202 of the Investment Advisor Act? And is the entity registered with the SEC? So if you've set up a fund and it's identified as an investment company and it's registered with the SEC, you're exempt.
Gotcha.
I think I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Hang on just 1 second. I've got to.
You buzzing. So this is a big thing for all investors.
It's a time sensitive thing.
Yeah, that's okay. So just real quick, guys. So this is an important thing. I know we're kind of going over with the legality words that Jeff's using, but you just need to understand that this is something you need to file before the end of the year. Yep. Jeff's saying push it off till after election to see what happens. If one party gets in, more likely it will be pushed off. If another party gets in, it most likely will be pushed forward. So that's the only reason right now to kind of hold off is you can go ahead and file this, right, Jeff? Right now, they can go on and file if they want to.
They can go on and file if they want to. My attitude is I'm going to file in the middle of November because I'm waiting to see how much more streamlined they make this, because they've gotten it a lot more streamlined. They've gotten a lot more simplified. Okay. But let's just talk about what if you don't do this? Okay. What happens if my company does not report beneficial ownership interest in the required time frame? Okay. If a person, so if you've made a mistake, if you got to go back and fix something, you got 90 days to fix it and you'll be okay. However, should a person willfully fail to report or update beneficial ownership information to FinCEN as required under the reporting rule, FinCEN will determine the appropriate enforcement response in consideration of its published enforcement factors. The willful failure to report or update and the willful provision of or attempt to provide false or fraudulent information may result in civil or criminal penalties, including civil penalties of up to $500 for each day and up to $10,000, and up to 2 years in prison.
This is serious stuff.
So when you go to prison for more than 180 days, you went from a first-degree misdemeanor to a felony.
Wow.
So we're talking, this is how a business owner can become a felon, by doing nothing.
Wow.
Think about that. Just think about that for 1 second.
I feel
I
bad for
own a
those who
business.
never knew about this, right? There's so many
Right.
small companies out there have never heard of this. They talk to attorney every couple of years when they need them, and their CPA may not even mention it. And this could affect, so it's not only us guys, it's telling the community out there, hey, if they have a small business, you need to make sure you're aware of this.
Fred's Lawnmower Repair, Al's Roofing, and Bob's Lawn Mowing Service all have to comply. Because, you know, Fred and Bob and Al, they might be laundering money for the cartel. Just saying. You know, there's somebody that's going to hear me say this, and they're going to really not agree with me. And they're going to be like, well, Jeff, you're not serious about this. Yes, I am serious about this. Listen, I am very vehemently, politically, and morally opposed to money laundering. I'm not a fan of tax evasion. Okay. I won't tolerate it. I've had clients ask me to help them do it, and I won't do it. But at the same time, I'm not a fan of a government that says, simply because I run a business and I don't do anything other than run a business, make sure my customers are taken care of, meet payroll, and pay my taxes, that now I'm a felon because I forgot to go tell you who owns my business.
So 2 quick questions we have from Levi. One is, what is a pooled investment vehicle for reporting purposes?
Don't know. Go ask his own attorney on that question, because
Okay.
if he has one, go ask.
And then Dan on Facebook asks, I want to share this information with others. Is the matrix found online? Is there a link to it? Or is it something you built?
The matrix I showed you is available from FinCEN, and I will make the whole PDF of 57 pages available to both Nathan and Dave by the end of the podcast. Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
So the matrix is not mine. I'm literally going from something that I got updated off of the FinCEN website a month ago. Yep.
The matrix is everywhere. Yeah. One other question here. Levi Rutter's asking, what is a pooled investment vehicle for reporting purposes?
That's a great question, Levi. Ask your own attorney.
Got it.
Yep. Because it's going to depend upon how you've structured it. Have you registered it with the SEC and so on? Because if you have registered it with the SEC and you've gotten compliance, it's probably an exempt entity. But if you haven't, it's not exempt.
So we're talking like even like a syndication may be exempt if you're doing like a multifamily syndication.
A syndication may be exempt if it's followed all the dots and the I's. Because remember, a syndication is being done under the supervision of an exempt entity, such as a broker-dealer or securities office.
Right. Right. So
it may be exempt.
Okay.
Yeah. That's something I've got to figure out in the next 2 months.
Yeah.
You know, because I've got a client with a number of syndications that everything is run through a broker-dealer office. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, I think this is something people should definitely keep and tune into your website, that you can get just information through the link that we provided earlier. And for those who want to catch us, this will be on our YouTube and our podcast. I would encourage you guys to follow along with Jeff's page. He's has a constant flow going on, and talk to your attorney, talk to your real estate attorney, whoever you work with, and ask, is this required for me? If you're not sure, ask. I wouldn't go to the assumption of I'm not sure, so I'm ignore it, because I hate to see any one of you guys get a felony or go to jail or get fined just simply because you didn't know.
Yep.
So it doesn't matter if we care or not. Yeah.
Dave, let me interrupt you, and I'm sorry, because I know we got to pay attention to the time. But
yes,
this is important. Not only do you have to report who is the beneficial owners according to the way the company is structured, but you also have to report who has substantial control. So substantial control could be the president, the CFO, general counsel, chief executive officer, chief operating officer, and then you can have anybody who has the ability to make decisions at a strategic level of the company. Can you fire a senior officer? Can you bump somebody off the board of directors? That's important. And if you look at the catch-all down here at the bottom, you got to love this. This is how they define substantial control. Okay, you're going to love this. Any other form of substantial control over the reporting company. So we define substantial control by using the same words. Yes, great. Control exercised in new and unique ways can still be substantial. For example, flexible corporate structures may have different indicators of control than indicators included here. So there may be a situation where as you pay down the debt on a company that you're acquiring, you obtain more and more control of the company. And so once that pendulum swings to where now you have control or an ownership stake in excess of 24%, now you've got to go back and report. So, I mean, there's so many gotchas and traps in this.
Oh my Lord.
And so my best recommendation is this: when in doubt, report.
Yeah.
When in doubt, report.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I've got some figuring out to do, but I'm just, as we're going through here, I've got a fund, which I'm going to double check and make sure I'm exempt there. I've got a nonprofit. I think I'm exempt there. And then anything else I do is actually owned by my Canadian corporation. So I think I'm exempt there too.
But let me ask you this, Nathan. Has the
Yeah.
Canadian corporation done any business in the continental United States?
That's all business.
Has it filed anything in the States?
Sure has. Yep.
Then it needs to report.
All right. So close.
You thought you were home free.
So close.
Just when you thought you were out, they pull you back in.
That's
so
awesome.
close. Yeah, we file a tax return every year and all that good stuff. So I mean,
yep,
all the business is done in the US. So yep.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, I know we're kind of getting close on time, and I know that you have, and the reason we did an earlier call, guys, is Jeff's schedule is tight. Jeff, before we get to our last question, are you to be anywhere, any kind of conferences, speaking conferences coming up in the next few months?
Yep, I've got 2 on my calendar right now. I'm going to be teaching all about private lending, literally how you originate a note on rental residential real estate, stuff like that in a commercial context. We're not talking about originating notes to consumer borrowers. We're talking about originating notes to commercial borrowers. I'm going to be talking about that at a seminar in Orlando, Florida, the 11th, 12th, and 13th of October. You can go find that out on my Facebook page. You can see it on my blog, watsoninvested.com. And then I'm going to be speaking at Note Expo. And I'm just going to tell everybody right now, I'm going to be speaking about when you sell a partial, does it become a security or not?
Interesting.
Is it possible? And the answer, I'm going to just tease you and say the answer is yes. There are ways you can sell a partial and make it become a security. And that means you've got a whole lot more responsibility. So the question really is, can you do a partial deal and it not become a security? That's the question.
And how to do that.
Interesting. Little teaser. Make sure you get your tickets. Be there.
Yes, we're just talking about that. Go ahead, Nathan, let you finalize our call.
Yeah, we bring on people that are experts in their field and in real estate. And so curious what you see, what's your crystal ball, given your history and things you know, what do you see coming down the pipe? Where are we headed in terms of real estate, housing, notes? What do you see?
We are at a crossroads. And I don't know which way we're going to go in certain respects. We are either going to have a prosperous inflationary economy, or we're going to have a recessionary inflationary economy. We're either going to fall headlong into stagflation. And I mean, not just the stagnant recession, but also inflation. Or we're going to go into an area where we've got economic prosperity and we've got inflation. I do not see a path forward that does not include inflation. There is going to be some substantial pain in certain sectors of the commercial real estate market.
Yeah.
Office buildings are in deep ugly kimchi. There's a lot of short-term loans coming due on apartment complexes. That is going to be a challenge. I can already tell you that some of the big boys and the pros are gearing up, and I'm already seeing it. And I can also tell you that the workout specialists at the big lenders and the big facility companies,
Sure.
they are overwhelmed. They're just overwhelmed with all the workouts they're trying to do. Okay, kicking the can down the road, trying to find something viable to make happen. But what we've got is an unprecedented opportunity to either absolutely obliterate yourself financially or make some wise decisions and secure yourself and your future prosperity. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm doing everything I can to get my hands on hard cash flow appreciating, even cash flow neutral assets. When the Fed cut the rate the other day, I just looked across my portfolio, everything I control, took the total value of everything I control, and I just factored a bump, you know, a 3% bump just because of that. Because inflation is just, we just flicked a little more oxygen and gasoline towards the inflationary fire. And somebody's going to say to me, well, Jeff, how do we get rid of inflation? The answer is painfully simple, but it's painful.
Yeah.
We have to put Congress on a diet. We have to go explain to both members of both parties in both houses, hey, yo, add an extra $1 trillion every 3 months to the federal debt is not sustainable.
Nope.
We have to run a surplus for the next 10 years.
Holy
You're
God.
going to have to live on less than what you've been getting.
That's an amazing concept. I mean, I thought we all did as human beings.
Well, but Dave, here's the part that gets me. There was a continuing resolution that worked its way through Congress in the last week, and there were some conservative members of Congress who voted against it. And this is the reason why they voted against it. They go, why are we continuing spending at pandemic levels? The pandemic's over. And it's a really good point that no one will answer. And so you have to put Congress on a diet.
Yeah.
Now, I'm gonna get some hate mail on this, and I don't care. I am convinced that you could tear out 10% of every agency's budget, take them back to pre-pandemic level of spending, and then rip out 10% from there. And then if we just simply get the tax code the right way and we get the regulatory burdens lifted and we turn back to the natural resources that are out where Nathan is, all the way down past where I live and so on, all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico, and we just drill and we do it in a smart, responsible way, we're going to become the #1 wealthiest economy in the world. And I'm going to explain it to you this way. We live in an energy economy. Our information technology is dependent upon energy. If we don't have access to good, reliable energy, irrespective of clouds and winds and everything else out there, we're in trouble.
Is your comment you're running for president soon or what?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I know I'm just repeating back to you the stuff that I have heard from some really good leaders that are already in DC that are doing the best they can do in their situation. And you know, I'm trying to get some more guys there, more guys and gals that are there, get them there. I'm working aggressively right now, and I'm going to tell you, my number one candidate I'm focusing on right now is in the state of Ohio, the 13th congressional district. It is Akron-Canton area. Blue collar, lunch bucket, hardworking people. And they've got a choice. They can stick with the first term progressive absentee representative that lives in Columbus, Ohio, or they can go to a guy that has been there for decades, that has represented them very well in the state legislature, and who happens to be a good friend of mine, Kevin Coughlin. And I want to see Kevin take that seat. One more common sense business owner, small business owner in Washington, D.C., making laws that affect the rest of us. That's what I'm aiming for.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I see another vote from Cindy Coleman that she's going to vote for you for president as well. So thank you, Cindy, for another vote. But yeah,
thank you. Yeah,
it's amazing to hear, you know, just common sense. And that's something we have to get back to, just basic common sense. And I think we get lost in that translation because of all the hand pandering that goes on.
Yes.
just
Yeah.
be aware, guys. We don't want to get too political, but just be aware of how it's going to affect your future. How does it affect your kids? How does it affect your business? And just, we don't want to short-term game this and say, okay, what's going to happen for next year? We have to look long-term. The idea of us adding, discussing capital to our budget, our deficiency of every year, is scary, right?
Yep.
But this CTA that we're talking about the show is important for you guys to make sure you file, so you avoid the fines, avoid the jail time, avoid the felony, and just share the information, because some people don't know about it and you don't want them to get affected by something they just weren't aware of. Because I'm going to tell you, if I wasn't in this space, I haven't heard this at all spoken
Yeah.
anywhere, but at the conferences with Jeff and whatnot. So spread this to your local RIAs, please.
So I'm gonna, if you permit me, I'm gonna just pitch. I'm gonna close with one
Yes.
selfish little pitch.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I want to give you my perspective. I have been doing a tremendous amount of studying and writing. I'm writing a book. It's at the publisher now. The title of the book is Boaz on Business, based upon the character that we see in the Old Testament book of Ruth.
yeah,
And I want to close with this comment. Boaz made an investment decision looking forward 3 generations. Not a
Ooh,
short-term trade,
Mhm.
3 generations.
wow.
Think about that. That's the kind of investor Boaz was. He was thinking 3 generations down the road. That's
a
how we
century.
should be.
That's a century.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Yeah.
Well, Jeff,
That's
always a
awesome.
pleasure. Thank you. Hang on for a minute. I appreciate having you on the live show. For all those, this will be recorded. It's on our podcast, all that good stuff. We will be back in a few weeks. Stay tuned for more information. Thanks a lot,
Yeah.
guys. Hang out.
Thank you. Be
Peace.